Mom, where are you? The front door slammed so hard the walls seemed to shake, and Ethan's furious voice ripped through the house. His footsteps thundered across the hardwood like a storm breaking loose. I set down the folded towels in my arms and stepped into the hallway just as he appeared in the living room. Face flushed, fists tight, eyes burning with the same green fire his father once had. Why did Lauren call me crying? His words came sharp, cutting. She said you changed the password on your card while she was at the grocery store. She couldn't pay. Do you realize how humiliating that was for her? I froze in the doorway. 70 years had taught me how to keep my voice steady even when the world tilted. But this was different. This was my own son, 42 years old, shouting at me in my own home. Ethan, I said firmly, lower your voice. We don't scream at each other. And yes, I changed the password. Because it's my card. He stepped closer, the heat of his anger filling the room. Yours? We're family, Mom. You don't get to throw up walls when we need help. The knot in my stomach twisted. The card is in my name. It's my responsibility, he barked a laugh, bitter and sharp. Selfish. That's what this is. Lauren wasn't buying nonsense. She was buying things for the house. Food, cleaning supplies, the basics. But I knew better. Last week I had gone through the statements myself. Hundreds at a restaurant, makeup, clothes, luxuries, not necessities. I swallowed hard and kept my calm. If you need help with something real, we can sit down and talk like adults. But leaving my card wide open? That's not happening. His eyes narrowed. Just anyone? You're calling my wife just anyone? She's your daughter-in-law. She's family. I lowered myself into the old armchair in the corner, the one where I had once cradled him as an infant, when he depended on me for everything. My hands trembled, but my voice did not. Lauren is always welcome here, but my credit card is not community property. Ethan began pacing the floor, restless, sweating despite the chill of the air conditioning. His voice cracked as it rose. You've spent your whole life giving, always helping, always sacrificing. And now, when your own family asks for support, you shut the door like a miser? That word landed like a stone in my chest. Miser. Me. The woman who had worked through nights so he could go to college. The woman who gave him the down payment for his first apartment. The woman who stood alone at his father's grave and swore she would give her son the best life possible. Ethan, I said, rising to my feet though my back ached in protest, I will not let you speak to me that way under my roof. Then explain it to me. He shouted, Why change the password overnight without telling us? Because I checked my statements, I said, my voice like steel. And I saw money pouring out for things I never approved. His face froze, rage flickering into something else, uncertainty, maybe guilt. The vein in his neck throbbed, his jaw clenched. Lauren told me she always asked you first, he muttered. No, I said quietly, firmly. She didn't. Lauren is lying. The silence that followed felt heavier than all the shouting. The silence pressed down on the room so hard it was almost physical. Ethan's stare cut through me like a blade, as if I'd just struck him across the face. I won't let you insult my wife, he snapped. I'm not insulting her, I said, keeping my voice calm though my hands trembled. I'm telling you the truth. The truth? His laugh was harsh. The truth is you're getting paranoid. Maybe it's time someone else started handling your finances. His words hit me harder than anything he'd said before. My own son, my boy I'd raised on my own, standing in my living room, suggesting I wasn't capable of managing my own money. Doubting my mind. Doubting me, I lifted my chin. I think you need to leave, Ethan. I'm not leaving until this is fixed, he shot back. Give me the new password. Right now. No, son. I said no. I held his eyes, refusing to flinch. This is my house and this is my decision. If Lauren needs something, she can ask me directly. Ethan spun toward the door, anger radiating off him in waves. But he stopped before leaving, his back still to me. When he finally spoke, his voice was ice. "This isn't over. We'll talk again when you get over your tantrum." "It's not a tantrum, Ethan," I said quietly. "It's a decision. A foolish one. And you're going to regret it when you see how this affects our relationship." His words clung to the air like a shadow. My son, my only child, standing in my home hinting he'd cut me off if I didn't hand him control of my money. "Are you threatening me?" I asked. "I'm warning you." He turned halfway, his face hard. "Lauren is devastated by your attitude. I don't even know if she'll want to see you after this." "Then that will be her decision," I replied, steady as I could. He shook his head slowly, contempt curling his lip. "You know what? You're right. This is your choice, and we'll make ours." The door slammed so hard the walls shuddered. I was left standing in the middle of the living room, my body trembling. Out on the patio, the begonias wilted in the late afternoon sun, but I no longer had the strength to water them. I drifted to the window in a daze, watching his car peel away from the curb. The tires squealed as he took the corner too fast. 40 years of motherhood, and it came to this. My son screaming at me because I chose to protect my own money. The silence afterward was different from the gentle hush I loved in the mornings. It was thicker, heavier, pressing against my chest. I lowered myself into my old armchair and closed my eyes, but the conversation replayed in my head like a broken record. Ethan's voice, his fury, the way he'd looked at me, not like a son speaking to his mother, but like a man demanding something owed. And all for a password. But deep inside, I knew it wasn't really about a password. It was about control, about boundaries, about the fact that, for the first time in years, I had told him no. The phone rang, slicing through the silence. Once, twice. I didn't move. The machine picked up, and Lauren's voice, sharp and shrill, filled the room. "Margaret, I know you're there. I hope you're happy with what you've done. Ethan is crushed. I don't understand why you're treating us this way. We're your family." The line went dead with a click. I let out a long breath and opened my eyes. The clock on the wall read 3:30. Just 2 hours ago, I had been folding laundry, watering plants, living a simple, ordinary Tuesday. Now it felt as if I'd lived an entire lifetime since noon. In the kitchen, I reached for the sack of potatoes. Cooking had always been my refuge. My hands knew what to do even when my heart didn't. The knife peeled away the skins in quiet strokes. But nothing could peel away the image of Ethan's face. The rage. Yes, but worse than that, the coldness. That look chilled me. Anger could burn itself out, but coldness had a way of staying. For 30 years, I had built my life around rhythm and routine, a quiet order that gave me strength. Coffee at 6, plants tended by sunrise, meals cooked in the same kitchen my husband had once filled with laughter. Predictable, safe, mine. But that sunny afternoon shattered all of it. And deep in my bones, I knew it was only the beginning. After Robert's funeral, when Ethan was just 12, I realized that order was the only thing that kept the grief from swallowing us whole. Schedules, routines, boundaries, that was how we survived. Breakfast at 7, homework before dinner, lights out by 9. I told myself that was how I'd raise a good man, the kind of man his father would have been proud of. The 2-story house Robert and I bought when I was pregnant became our fortress. We'd struggled for 20 years to pay off the mortgage, but every sacrifice was worth it. Every corner of that home carried a memory. The backyard where Ethan took his first steps. The kitchen where I cooked thousands of meals. The living room where we strung balloons for every birthday party. Neighbors knew me as the woman who always showed up. When Mrs. Carter down the street fell ill, I delivered dinners to her porch for 2 months. When the Ramirez boy needed help with tuition, I loaned the family $500 and never asked for a cent in interest. Giving was my way of keeping Robert's spirit alive. Ethan grew into the kind of son I could only dream of. Studious, kind, respectful. When he landed his first job as an accountant at 25, pride swelled in me so strong it nearly broke me. My years of sacrifice, of double shifts and sleepless nights had been worth it. For a long time, Ethan and I were a team. He managed my taxes. I cooked Sunday dinners. We checked in on each other regularly. It was simple, steady, good. And then he met Lauren. The first time he brought her over, I was stirring a pot of macaroni and cheese. Ethan walked in with a grin I hadn't seen since he was a boy. His hand clasped around a delicate blonde with perfect nails and clothes that whispered of price tags far beyond my budget. "Mom," Ethan said, practically glowing, "this is Lauren, the love of my life." Lauren extended her hand, her smile polished and professional. "It's so nice to meet you, Mrs. Hayes. Ethan talks about you all the time." Her grip was firm but cool, her eyes flickering across my kitchen as if measuring every detail. Still, over dinner, she complimented the food, asked questions about my garden, admired the family photos on the walls. She even helped clear the table. When they left, I thought, maybe this will work. Maybe I'd been given not just a daughter-in-law, but a daughter. For a while, that's how it seemed. Lauren brought flowers, offered to wash dishes, shared funny stories from her job at the boutique downtown. Ethan was happy, and for me that was enough. The wedding was small but beautiful. Ethan wore his father's cufflinks. Lauren shone in a gown that must have cost a fortune. I wrote checks without hesitation, covering half the expenses before they even asked. He was my only son. This was my chance to see him start a family of his own. Lauren picked out the dress, the flowers, the menu, the playlist. I just smiled for the photos and tried not to mind that my role was only to pay and pose. In the first months of their marriage, Sunday visits continued. Ethan and Lauren sat at my kitchen table, sharing stories of their new life together, and the house felt alive again. For the first time since Robert's death, I could almost believe everything was as it should be. Then the favors started. "Margaret," Lauren said one afternoon, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "Could we borrow a little money?" "Just $200. We're tight this month with the apartment bills. We'll pay you back Friday." Of course I said yes. It was only $200. They were young, just starting out, and money is always tight in the beginning. I handed it over without a second thought. Friday came and went. No repayment. Instead, another request. "Mom," Ethan said this time, "could you help us with 300 more? Lauren needs clothes for work and my bonus hasn't come through yet." 300 turned into 5. 5 turned into more. The numbers grew, always paired with the same promise. "We'll pay you back soon," and always paired with the same excuse. Things are just tight right now. 6 months later, I looked at the totals. Nearly $5,000 gone, and not a single repayment made. And for the first time, I felt the ground beneath our careful structure begin to crack. When I finally brought it up over Sunday lunch, Ethan's fork froze halfway to his mouth. "Mom, you know we're going to pay you back," he said quickly, not meeting my eyes. "I don't understand why you're keeping such exact accounts. We're family." "Of course we're family, son," I answered evenly, "but $5,000 isn't nothing." Lauren jumped in before the silence stretched too long, flashing me her brightest smile. "Margaret, you're absolutely right. We should have been more careful with the payments. How about this? We'll give you my credit card as collateral. That way you'll feel secure." I didn't want her credit card. I wanted my money, but I nodded. because I didn't know how to bargain with my own son and his wife. A week later, Lauren called me in a frantic voice. "Margaret, I have an emergency. My card's blocked and I need to buy medicine for my mom. Could I borrow yours just for today?" Just for today. Just for medicine. I hesitated, then handed it over. That night, I checked my statement online. There it was, $150 at the pharmacy. Good. But there were other charges, too. $80 on cosmetics, $200 on clothes, $30 at a high-end restaurant. The next day, I confronted her. "Lauren, what is this?" She gasped, then her eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Margaret. I was at the mall, and there were incredible sales. I just thought it would be okay. I promise I'll pay you back tomorrow." Tomorrow never came. Neither did the repayment. But the requests never stopped. There was always a new emergency. Medicine for her sister. Shoes for a wedding. An anniversary gift for Ethan. Every time, her voice urgent, her promises quick, her words dripping with apology. And every time I gave in, because I couldn't quite bring myself to slam the door on my own family. Months blurred into a year. My savings dwindled, and I lost count of how much had drained away. Each time I tried to bring it up, Ethan cut me off, his voice tinged with irritation. "Mom, why are you being so petty about this? You have plenty of money. We're just trying to get ahead." Petty. That word lodged itself in my chest like a splinter I couldn't remove. Sunday lunches grew heavier. I cooked, they ate, but the table talk was no longer about work or the weather. It was about money. Always money. "If we had a better car, I could get a better job," Lauren would say, scrolling through her brand new phone. "If we moved to a nicer neighborhood, we'd have a better life," Ethan would add, spooning a third helping of my stew into his bowl. I listened in silence, their words circling closer and closer to what they truly meant. Give us more. One afternoon, I sat at the dining room table with my bank statement spread out before me. My hands shook as I added the numbers. In the past 6 months, I had spent more money than my retirement income provided. My nest egg, the savings Robert and I had worked a lifetime to protect, was slipping away. Not on my health, not on my needs, but to fund Ethan and Lauren's luxuries. That night, sleep abandoned me. I lay awake until dawn, running numbers in my head. How much had they taken? How much more could I afford to lose before I had nothing left? For the first time in 30 years, my morning routine failed to steady me. The coffee tasted bitter. My plants seemed lifeless. The silence of the house pressed down like a punishment. Something had to change. But how could I confront my own son without shattering the fragile pieces of family I had left? The following months dragged like slow torture. Every week brought another call, another urgent voice on the line. "Margaret, I need your card. Ethan's sick and the antibiotics are so expensive," Lauren pleaded one evening. And just like all the other times, I handed over the card, knowing exactly how the story would end. An hour after Lauren swore she only needed money for medicine, my phone buzzed with purchase alerts. $400 at a clothing boutique. My chest tightened. When I called her about it, she answered in that practiced, breezy tone. "Oh, Margaret, I forgot to tell you. I also needed new underwear. Mine are worn out and Ethan complains. Besides, there was a sale. 3 pieces for the price of 1. I couldn't miss it. $400 on underwear." It sounded absurd, but she delivered the excuse so confidently, so smoothly, that I almost doubted myself. There was always an explanation, always a way to twist the unnecessary into the reasonable, even the inevitable. And me, I, who had prided myself on raising an honest son, had started to question my own sense of what was right. Our Sunday meals no longer felt like family gatherings. They had become strategy sessions, Lauren laying out a list of expenses as though reading off a grocery receipt. Ethan's cousin is getting married next month, she'd announce with the flair of someone declaring breaking news. We'll need new clothes for the wedding. I stared at her across the table, biting my tongue. A cousin's wedding. Distant relatives I hardly knew, people who had never once asked about me. Yet here was Lauren, demanding money to dazzle strangers. I'll need at least $500 for a dress and shoes, she added, her fork poised midair like a judge's gavel. Ethan's family is so polished. I can't show up looking second-rate. My jaw clenched. $500, just to play dress-up for people who would forget her outfit the next morning. I opened my mouth to object, but Ethan cut me off. He had developed a new tactic, emotional guilt. Mom, he said quietly but firmly, you don't understand. These events matter. We're trying to build a reputation. My career depends on these connections. His career. He worked at a mid-sized accounting firm. His job depended on spreadsheets and deadlines, not cocktail parties and rented tuxedos. Still, I found myself silenced, unable to argue without sounding bitter, without being labeled the stingy old woman who didn't want her son to succeed. Then came the call that snapped everything into place. A Thursday afternoon, I was watering the azaleas on the patio when the phone rang. Mrs. Johnson, this is First State Bank. We're calling to confirm an unusual purchase on your card. $200 at Tech World Electronics. Did you authorize this? My knees nearly gave way. $1,200? Electronics? No, I said, gripping the railing for support. I did not authorize it. Cancel the charge. Block my card immediately and issue me a new one. When I hung up, my hands shook so violently I could barely set the phone down. Lauren had borrowed my card on Tuesday, swearing she only needed it for headache medicine. The phone rang again 20 minutes later. Lauren. What did you do, Margaret? She hissed. My card's been declined. I'm standing in the grocery store with a full cart and I can't pay. It's not your card, Lauren, I said, steadying my voice. It's mine. And I blocked it because someone tried to buy electronics without my permission. There was silence, followed by a nervous laugh. Oh, that. Ethan needed a new computer for work. His old one broke and he couldn't wait. It was important. Why didn't you ask me first? Because we knew you'd say no, she snapped. You never want to help us when it really matters. You always make excuses, her words cut sharper than glass. After years of draining my savings, years of bending to their endless emergencies, now I was the villain for drawing a line. Go home, I told her firmly. We'll talk when you get here. I can't leave. My card is full of groceries. You need to bring me cash, now, I hung up. My phone buzzed relentlessly for the next hour. Lauren, then Ethan, then Lauren again. I let every call go to voicemail. I needed silence. I needed truth. At the dining room table, I spread out 6 months of bank statements. January's balance, $45,000. June's balance, barely $19,000, $26,000. Gone. 6 months of my life savings siphoned off into boutiques, restaurants, gadgets, and excuses labeled as emergencies. I sat in the quiet of my home, the ticking of the clock loud as thunder, and realized I wasn't supporting my family anymore. I was financing their lies, and unless I acted, there would be nothing left of the life I had built, nothing left for me at all. I sat at the dining room table with bank statements spread across every inch of wood. My pen scratched circles around charges, expensive restaurants, weekend getaways, handbags, designer shoes, perfumes, spa treatments. Not a single one of them had anything to do with necessity. My savings had been bled dry for indulgence disguised as emergencies. The sound of the front door creaking open made my heart jolt. They didn't knock anymore. Ethan and Lauren walked into my home as if it were theirs. Ethan's face looked weary, but his voice carried a hint of annoyance. Mom, what happened with the card? I set my pen down and looked him square in the eye. I blocked it. There were purchases I never authorized. Lauren dropped her purse on the sofa and flopped down like a queen in her throne, arms folded across her chest. Her expression was pure defiance. Margaret, every single thing we've bought was talked about with you. You can't just block the card every time you forget a conversation. I didn't forget, I said, my voice calm but sharp. A $1,200 computer is not something I agreed to. You told me you needed money for medicine. Ethan let out a long sigh and sat across from me, slouched in the armchair as if the weight of the world had landed on his shoulders. Mom, sometimes emergencies change. Sure, Lauren needed medicine. But then I saw the sale at Tech World. That computer normally runs $2,000. It was practically a steal. I stared at him. The boy I raised to value honesty, discipline, and responsibility now stood before me, justifying a reckless purchase as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Ethan, I said slowly, that computer was not an emergency. It was a luxury. He leaned forward, his tone pleading. It's not a luxury. It's a tool. I need it for work. Then buy it with your work paycheck, I shot back. Lauren sprang up from the sofa, her hands pressed to her hips, voice dripping with indignation. I knew this would happen. You always twist it so we look like we're taking advantage of you. You make us feel guilty every single time we ask for help. I'm not making you feel guilty, I said, my voice rising despite myself. I just want you to respect that this money is mine. I worked 40 years for it, Lauren scoffed. Your money, it's always about you. We're family, Margaret. Family money is supposed to be shared. The word stung. I clenched my fists. It's my money, not community property. Family doesn't mean entitlement. Ethan stood and began pacing, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. Mom, I get what you're saying, but you need to understand where we're coming from. We're trying to get ahead, to build something better. Your support has been critical for us. I've supported you for 2 years, I said firmly. More than $25,000 has gone out of my account because of you two. Lauren gasped as if I had accused her of a crime. 25,000? That's impossible. We haven't spent that much. I pointed to the sea of papers on the table. It's all right here. Look at it yourself. Neither of them moved closer. Neither of them wanted to face the evidence. The real issue, Ethan said carefully, is that you can't just cut us off without warning. Do you know how humiliating it was for Lauren when her card was declined at the store? People were staring at her. It wasn't her card, I corrected. It was mine. And it's not a family card. It's my card. Lauren's voice rose, sharp and impatient. So what, you're saying you're done helping us? That's not even an option, Margaret. Of course you'll keep lending it. You're our family. Ethan looked almost surprised by my silence, as though he couldn't imagine a world where I said no. I stood from my chair and walked toward the window. The garden outside glowed in the late afternoon sun. The geraniums were blooming white, the begonias red, the vine along the fence climbing taller each day. Everything I nurtured flourished. So why, I wondered, was my relationship with my only son withering into something unrecognizable? Without turning back, I said, I want you both to leave. Today. Mom, please. Ethan's voice cracked with frustration. I need to be alone. I cut him off, steady and unshakable. The sound of their footsteps moved toward the door, dragging against the floorboards. Just before stepping outside, Ethan paused, his silence hanging heavy in the room, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. We hope you reconsider, Ethan said quietly. We don't want this to ruin our relationship. The door closed gently behind them, No slammed doors, no shouting, just the soft click of wood against wood, and with it, the sound of my hopes for a peaceful family life slipping further away. For 3 long days, silence filled my house. No calls from Ethan asking for a little help. No sudden visits from Lauren with her emergencies that always ended with my wallet thinner than before. The quiet should have been comforting, but instead it felt like a storm waiting to break. I knew they were giving me space to feel guilty, to second-guess myself, to come crawling back with apologies. Friday morning, I sat on my back patio, sipping my coffee as the sun warmed the garden. My flowers were thriving, roses climbing higher, marigolds blooming brighter. But inside me there was no peace. For 2 years I had avoided looking at the truth. I had trusted my family without keeping proper watch over my finances. That was about to change. I walked inside, turned on my computer, and logged into my online banking. The number staring back at me knocked the air from my chest. 2 years ago, I had a nest egg of $45,000. Now, more than $25,000 was gone. With trembling hands, I hit print on my statements from the last 24 months. For 20 minutes straight, the printer spat out page after page, a steady stream of evidence of my own misplaced trust. I carried the stack to the dining room table, spread it out, and began sorting through every line item. There were ordinary charges I could recognize: grocery stores, utilities, the occasional modest restaurant meal. But then came the rest. March, $500 at a jewelry store. I hadn't bought jewelry in years. April, $700 at a boutique. I wore clothes until they were soft with age. May, $300 at a spa. I had never set foot in one. June, $1,000 at an electronics shop. I barely knew how to check email. July, $800 at a perfume counter. My $30 bottle of lavender cologne lasted me half a year. The list went on and on, every month dotted with purchases that didn't belong to me. High-end clothes, gadgets, luxury items. It wasn't my life written in those numbers. It was Lauren's. I felt a chill creep up my spine. My trust, my savings, my security, slowly siphoned off under the guise of family. I pulled out my phone book and dialed the bank. "Good morning, Mrs. Miller. How may I assist you today?" "I need detailed records of every single credit card transaction for the last 2 years," I said. My voice was steady, but my fingers gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles ached. "Of course. May I ask, is there a specific concern?" "There are transactions I don't recognize," I answered. "I understand. We'll prepare a certified report and mail it to you within 3 business days. In the meantime, may I suggest you check if anyone else has access to your card?" "Someone else?" I repeated, though the name burned in my mind instantly: Lauren. After hanging up, I went to my bedroom, opened the lockbox where I kept my most important documents, my passport, the deed to the house, insurance policies. Tucked at the bottom was something that made my blood run cold. A photocopy of my credit card. Both sides. Numbers clear as day. Even the 3-digit code on the back. And in the corner, scribbled in Lauren's handwriting, 3 words: "For emergencies, L." My hands trembled as I held it. When had she made this copy? How had she gotten into my room? Since when had she been treating my finances as if they were her own? The shrill ring of the phone made me jump. I answered without looking at the caller ID. "Margaret, hi." Lauren's voice was bright, sugary sweet, the same voice she had used the first months after marrying Ethan, when she was still pretending to charm me. "I've missed you these past few days." "I'm fine, Lauren," I said flatly. "Oh, that's good to hear. Actually, I have the tiniest favor to ask. Do you remember your card's security number? I'm trying to make a quick purchase online and I don't have the card with me." The world seemed to stop. She already had a copy of my card. And now she was asking for the last piece of information she needed as if it were nothing. Like borrowing a cup of sugar. As if it were the most natural thing in the world, I whispered, my hand tightening on the receiver. "Where is my card, Lauren?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "I have it, of course." "Like always." Her tone was casual, almost dismissive. "Didn't you give it to me months ago to keep just for emergencies?" My mind reeled. I remembered loaning it out on occasion, once for groceries, another time when she claimed her mother needed medication. Temporary, specific favors. Not once had I given her permission to keep it indefinitely. "Lauren," I said firmly, "I need you to return my card." "Why?" she asked with feigned innocence. "Did something happen? Is something wrong?" "I need to have it with me," she sighed as though I were a child being difficult. "But Margaret, how are we supposed to handle emergencies? You'd be burdened every time. Every little thing we'd have to bother you. Isn't it easier if I just keep it?" "You'll have to ask me for permission every time." That's how it should be. Silence filled the line. For a moment, I thought she might argue further. Then she spoke again, her tone tighter. "You know what? We should talk in person. I'm coming over. No, Lauren. Just give me back my card." "I'll be there soon," she said, ignoring me, and hung up. 20 minutes later, Ethan's car pulled up in front of my house. I braced myself for shouting, for anger, but this time it was different. The doorbell rang politely like any other guest. When I opened the door, only Lauren stood there, smiling with practiced warmth. "Hi, Margaret. May I come in?" Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. She glided into my living room and sat on the sofa, crossing her legs as though she owned the space. From her purse, she pulled out my credit card, placing it on the coffee table but not sliding it toward me. "Here's your card," she said sweetly. "But before I hand it back, we really need to talk." "Talk about what?" I asked, my arms folding across my chest. "About why you don't trust us anymore. About why you're treating us like strangers. About why you've changed so much." "I haven't changed," I replied steadily. "I'm just protecting what's mine." "Protecting your money from what? From us?" She rose from the sofa, drifting around my living room as though she were inspecting it. She touched photo frames, adjusted a cushion, even ran her hand along the mantelpiece. "Margaret," she said softly, "you know Ethan and I love you. We'd never hurt you. But lately, it feels like you've decided we're the enemy." "I don't see you as enemies," I said, though my hands tightened. "I just need to know exactly how my money is being used." She turned, her eyes glistening with false hurt. "Don't you trust my judgment? After 2 years of being married to your son, you still treat me like an outsider." "You're not an outsider, Lauren, but my money is still mine." She sat down again, closer this time, leaning toward me. "I understand you feel uneasy. That happens. When a woman reaches a certain age, it's natural to become more protective. Maybe even—" She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "A little paranoid with money." "A certain age?" The word sliced through me. "What do you mean by that?" "Nothing bad," she said quickly, her tone honeyed. "Just that older people tend to worry too much. Sometimes they imagine problems that aren't there." "Paranoid," I repeated, the same word Ethan had thrown at me not long ago. "Paranoid, for wanting control of my own credit card. Paranoid, for refusing to let my savings be drained." Then Lauren said it outright. "You're treating us like thieves. Blocking your card, ordering reports, questioning every purchase. What is that if not accusing us of stealing?" The word hung between us like poison. "Stealing?" "I never said that," I answered firmly, standing up. "I needed distance from her. You didn't need to say it. Your actions said it all." "Lauren," I said, my voice firm now, Just give me my card back." "Of course," she said, finally pushing it across the table. I snatched it up and tucked it into the pocket of my blouse, relief flooding me at the weight of it against my chest. But Lauren wasn't finished. "I hope you realize this will complicate everything. Every time we have an emergency, you'll be inconvenienced. Every time we need something urgent, you'll have to help directly." "That's fine. I'll handle it." She tilted her head, her smile tinged with pity. "Are you sure? Emergencies don't wait for office hours. Sometimes they come late at night. Sometimes they happen when you're too tired to drive, or when you don't even hear the phone." "What then?" Her words weren't just concern, they were a warning, and for the first time, I realized she wasn't asking for help. She was demanding control. Was she threatening me or just laying out practical scenarios? I couldn't tell. Either way, I wasn't going to let her keep my card. "We'll handle each situation as it comes," I said firmly. Lauren gave a slow nod, her eyes unreadable. "Okay, if that's what you want." She stood brushing invisible lint off her blouse. At the door, she turned back with a sigh. "I just hope you don't regret this, Margaret. You're making things harder for everyone." I followed her to the entryway. Before leaving, she stopped, her voice softer now. "You know what hurts the most? After 2 years of treating you like my own mother, you see me as a stranger. That really stings." Her eyes filled with tears, shimmering in the light of the porch lamp. For a moment, guilt pricked me. Almost. "I don't see you as a stranger, Lauren," I said quietly. "I see you as my son's wife. But my money is still mine." She pressed her lips together, gave a sad nod, and walked out into the night. That evening, I lay in bed, wide awake. Her words replayed again and again, paranoid, distrustful. Old. Was I? Or was I simply doing what any responsible 70-year-old should, protecting what she worked her whole life to earn? I reached for the small lockbox I kept in my nightstand and took out the spare card I had hidden months earlier. Under the glow of the bedside lamp, I examined it carefully. The numbers, the hologram, the strip on the back, it wasn't just a copy. It was flawless, perfectly usable. Someone had gone to deliberate effort to make sure I wouldn't notice. A cold shiver crawled down my spine. This wasn't paranoia. This was betrayal. I hadn't been cautious enough, but I didn't know the worst was yet to come. On Monday morning, a thick envelope arrived by certified mail. The return address was my bank. Inside were 5 pages of detailed statements, the kind that listed every transaction down to the minute. I sat at the dining room table with a cup of coffee and spread the pages out before me. Each line was a record of money being drained, thousands of dollars in slow, careful increments. Clothing stores and malls I had never stepped into. Restaurants in neighborhoods I'd never driven through. Gas stations and hotels in cities I had never visited. And the most disturbing of all, ATM withdrawals at 3 a.m. I sat frozen, my hands trembling around my coffee mug. How could money have been pulled from a machine while I was home in bed? I picked up the phone and dialed Ethan's number, my heart thudding. "Hey, Mom," he answered cheerfully. "Ethan, I need to ask you something important." "Of course. What's going on?" "My card has been used when I wasn't there." There was a pause. His voice tightened. "What do you mean?" "I mean transactions at hours I was home. Cash withdrawn at 3 a.m. "Oh," he said after a beat. "That. One time we needed cash for a taxi after dinner. We were out late and I didn't have any on me. One time? Ethan, the report shows 6 withdrawals in the last 3 months. 6. That's $1,800 in cash." He sighed, frustration leaking through his words. "Mom, I'm not going to write down every emergency just to hand you a report like I'm a teenager asking for allowance." We use the money for real needs. I don't get why you're suddenly treating us like criminals. I'm not treating you like criminals. I just want to understand how my money was spent. Well, it feels like an interrogation, he snapped. You know what? This can't be solved over the phone. Lauren and I are coming over. Ethan, wait. The line went dead. I was left clutching the receiver, my stomach in knots. Dread filled the silence of the house. I knew what was coming. Another confrontation, another performance where I'd be painted as the unreasonable old woman. But while I waited, I kept reading, and then I saw it. 2 transactions, stamped with the exact same time. One was at a fine dining restaurant across town. The other just minutes later, at a designer clothing store 12 miles away. It was impossible. Unless someone had cloned my card and used it freely, confident I wouldn't notice. The realization hit like a punch to the chest. This wasn't an emergency. This wasn't carelessness. This was deliberate. It was impossible for a single person to make 2 purchases at the same time in different places. That could only mean one thing. Someone had made extra copies of my card. 40 minutes later, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Before I could get to the door, it opened. Ethan and Lauren walked inside without knocking, using the spare key I had given them years ago for true emergencies. My heart sank. Mom, we need to talk, Ethan said, his tone sharp, like he had been rehearsing the line on the drive over. Lauren followed close behind him. She didn't have her usual sweet smile. Instead, her jaw was tight, her arms folded firmly across her chest. She sat on the sofa like she owned the place. Margaret, this is getting out of hand, she said bluntly. These suspicions, these accusations, this obsession with combing through every purchase. It isn't normal. It isn't normal. My voice trembled, but I held her stare. It isn't normal to want to know how my own money is being spent? It isn't normal to treat your family like con artists, Ethan cut in. I slid the stack of papers across the coffee table toward them. Then explain this. 2 purchases at the same time in 2 different places. Ethan snatched the sheets and scanned them quickly. What are you talking about? Friday, April 15th, I said, pointing to the lines with my finger. A $200 charge at the grand table at 8 o'clock. At the exact same time, a $300 charge at Elegance Boutique. Ethan's eyes darted to Lauren. They shared a look that lasted barely a second, but I caught it. Oh, that, Lauren said smoothly, like she had expected this. I was at the restaurant while Ethan ran out to buy me a surprise gift. We used both cards that evening so I wouldn't suspect anything. Both cards? I asked. My stomach twisted. Yes, Ethan said quickly. Mine and yours. But my card got declined, so I had to use yours for the gift. It wasn't planned. It just happened. The explanation rolled out too perfectly, too polished. My gut told me it wasn't the truth. But they were careful, always careful, never to leave proof I could hold up against them. I reached for the folded photocopy I had found in my lockbox and placed it on the table. How many copies of my card exist? Lauren frowned, her brow furrowing as if she were confused. Copies? What do you mean? This copy, I said, sliding the paper closer to her. My hand shook. With your handwriting on it. She picked it up and studied it with an almost theatrical pause, then shrugged lightly. Oh, right. I made that months ago, just in case. If I ever lost the card during an emergency, I'd have the numbers written down. Is that wrong? Did you make more copies? I pressed. Her eyes narrowed. No, of course not. Why would I? To make purchases in different places at the same time, I snapped. Ethan shot to his feet, his voice rising. Mom, enough. We can't take these accusations anymore. They're not accusations, I said firmly. They're questions. Honest questions about my own money. They're accusations of fraud, he fired back. You're accusing your own son and his wife of stealing from you. I just want the truth. Lauren stood too, stepping closer, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. Do you have any idea how much this hurts us? To have you, my own mother-in-law, look at me and think I'm a thief? That's cruel. Margaret, cruel. Her eyes glistened with tears, but this time, I felt nothing. I just want answers. The truth, Ethan shouted. His face flushed. Is that you're becoming paranoid? Every time we need help, you twist it into some crime drama. Every single time. Lauren's voice softened, almost breaking. And the truth is, Margaret, we've been talking. We think it might be best to step back for a while. To give you space. Until you get some professional help. The words hit harder than I expected. Professional help? Yes, Ethan said, lowering his tone as if he were being reasonable. Mom, I think you should talk to a doctor. These changes, this paranoia, this constant distrust, it isn't you. It's not normal. My personality hasn't changed, I said firmly. I'm just protecting what I worked for. It has changed, Lauren insisted, her voice tight. You used to be warm, generous, trusting. Now you're cold, suspicious, and stingy. Stingy? My voice cracked. For refusing to give away $25,000? It hasn't been $25,000. Ethan snapped. I grabbed the bank statements, spreading them out across the table like evidence in a trial. It's all here. Every charge, every withdrawal. Count it yourself. Neither of them moved. Neither of them even glanced at the papers. I'm not going to feed into this obsession you have, Ethan muttered. Keeping receipts of every little favor we've asked for? That's not healthy. Favors? My voice shook with anger now. You called draining $25,000 from my savings a favor? Lauren looked away, her lips pressed tight, while Ethan glared at me like I had committed the crime. In that moment, I realized something chilling. They weren't going to stop. Not until I stopped them. Yes, they're favors. From a mother to her son, Ethan said with a sharp edge in his voice. That's what families do. Normal families help each other. Normal families don't hide copies of credit cards, I answered, my voice steady even though my chest felt tight. Lauren reached across the table, grabbed the photocopy, and held it up between her fingers. Do you want me to tear it up? Will that make you feel better? Without waiting for my response, she ripped it into tiny pieces and let the shreds scatter across the table like confetti. There, happy now? How many other copies did you make? I asked, my eyes locked on hers. None, she said quickly. I didn't make any other copies. Then explain the late-night withdrawals. I already explained them. Her tone was flat, practiced. Ethan moved closer and placed his hand gently on my shoulder. Mom, this has to stop. You're destroying our family over money. I'm not destroying anything, I said, pulling away. I'm protecting what's mine. Protecting it from what? He asked, his voice heavy with frustration. From us? Protecting my finances, I said firmly. Your money isn't in danger with us, Lauren interjected softly. Your money is in danger with you. Do you know how many people your age lose everything because they make poor financial decisions? Poor decisions like trusting you? I shot back. Her expression tightened. Poor decisions like isolating yourself from your family because of paranoia. Ethan's hand dropped from my shoulder. He took a breath and tried again, this time calmer, as though he were offering a reasonable solution. Mom, I'm going to make you a proposal. Give us one last chance to prove we deserve your trust. Just 1 month. Let us use the card, and if at the end of that month you're not completely satisfied, we'll never ask you for money again. Lauren nodded eagerly, her eyes shining with false sincerity. It's a wonderful idea. We'll show you that you can trust us. I looked at them both. my son, and the woman he chose to marry. On the surface, it sounded like a compromise, something fair, something a normal family might suggest. But the way they stood there, united, expectant, I realized it wasn't a request. It was a demand wrapped in the disguise of kindness. "I need some time to think," I said. Ethan's expression hardened. "Time to think about what, Mom? Whether you trust your own family?" "Time to decide if I'm making a mistake," I answered. He exhaled, frustrated but controlled. "Fine, take your time. But in the meantime, we're going to take some time too." "What does that mean?" "It means until you decide to trust us again, we're going to keep our distance," he said. "We can't keep coming here, feeling like criminals every time we sit at this table." Lauren stood and moved toward the door, but before stepping outside, she turned back. Her face was calm, her words deliberate. "I hope when you've had enough time to think, you'll realize something. We're all you have, Margaret. Without family, money is worthless." The door closed softly behind them, and I was left staring at the scattered pieces of paper across the table. Their words rang in my ears long after they were gone. Was I a paranoid mother destroying the only relationship I had left? Or was I an older woman finally realizing she was being manipulated by the people she trusted most? I didn't know which possibility scared me more. For the next week, silence filled my home. No phone calls from Ethan asking for money, no sudden visits from Lauren with emergencies, no constant tugging at my purse strings. At first, the quiet felt like freedom. I could water my plants without interruption, sip tea on the patio, cook for myself without worrying about extra plates. But after 5 days, the silence shifted. It began to feel like punishment. Every hour without a call felt like a reminder of the ultimatum they had left me with. Was this their strategy? To freeze me out until I bent to their will? On Saturday morning, while reorganizing my closet, my hand brushed against something soft at the back of the drawer. Wrapped carefully in an old handkerchief was the pearl necklace Robert had given me for our 10th anniversary. I hadn't touched it in years. I unwrapped it and held it up to the light streaming through the window. The pearls glowed softly, still perfect, still whole, just as they had been the day he fastened them around my neck for the first time. They had lasted decades, untouched by time, untouched by greed, and I couldn't help but wonder. Why couldn't love, loyalty, and family last the same way? I remembered the first night Ethan's father, Robert, placed the pearl necklace around my neck. His hands shook slightly as he fumbled with the clasp, but when he finally secured it, he looked at me with a mix of pride and love. "For the strongest woman I know," he had whispered, "so you never forget your worth, my worth." Somewhere along the way, I had started to question it. I decided not to keep the necklace tucked away any longer. I clasped it around my neck, looked at myself in the mirror, and for the first time in a while, I saw more than a mother or a widow. I saw a woman who had lived, fought, and endured. I needed to get out of the house, to breathe fresh air, to remind myself that life was bigger than the constant tug-of-war with Ethan and Lauren. I went to the downtown farmers market, a place I had visited for over 20 years. The familiar scent of ripe fruit and fresh flowers greeted me like an old friend. At the fruit stand, Mr. Garcia looked up from arranging his oranges and smiled warmly, the wrinkles around his eyes deepening. "Mrs. Thompson, it's good to see you." "How have you been?" "I've been okay, Mr. Garcia. A little worried lately, but I'm managing." "Worried about your health? Your family?" he asked, lowering his voice in that gentle, knowing way. I hesitated before answering. "Families can be complicated," he chuckled. "I have 5 kids. Each one gives me a different headache." "Did you ever feel like your children only saw you as a source of money?" I asked, surprising myself with the bluntness of the question. Mr. Garcia stopped what he was doing and looked me straight in the eye. Are you going through something like that? I don't know if I'm exaggerating, or if it's really happening. He wiped his hands on his apron and leaned closer. Do you want advice from someone who's lived 75 years? I nodded. When your gut tells you something's wrong, you listen. A mother's instincts don't lie. Ever. His words echoed in my mind all the way home. A mother's instincts don't lie. That afternoon, while watering the begonias on the porch, my phone rang. It was Ethan. Hello, Mom. How are you? Hello, son. I'm fine. And you? We've been thinking a lot, he began. Lauren and I talked through everything and we came to a conclusion. What conclusion? I asked carefully. That maybe you're right to want more control over your money. Maybe we've been too casual about things. I was surprised. I hadn't expected that kind of admission. I'm glad to hear you say that. So, we want to propose something different, Ethan continued. Instead of using your card, we thought you could give us a fixed amount every month. Like an allowance. That way you know exactly what you're giving and we know what we can count on. An allowance? Yes, he said quickly, almost rehearsed. We were thinking maybe $1,500 a month. $1,500? I repeated, startled. That's $18,000 a year. It's less than what we've spent these past few months, he argued. We thought this would actually cut down expenses and give you more clarity. Why do you need $1,500 a month if both of you are working? Because we're trying to grow. Lauren's voice chimed faintly in the background. We need the right clothes for work, to maintain certain standards, to build our future. Our salaries barely cover rent and groceries. Everything else, networking, professional development, it all takes resources. Then maybe you should reduce your expenses, I said. There was a long silence. Then Ethan spoke again, his voice clipped. Do you want us to live like we're poor? I want you to live within your means, I replied firmly. Our means include having a mother who can help us, Ethan countered. I don't understand why you suddenly want us to struggle on our own when you have more than enough to make our lives easier. Because they're not my lives, I said quietly. They're yours, he sighed, and the warmth left his tone. We're family, Mom. My life and your life are connected, whether you admit it or not. I felt the conversation circling back into old territory. The same pressure wrapped in different words. Ethan, I'm not going to give you $1,500 a month. How much then? 1,000. I don't know, I answered, my chest tightening. I need to think about it. Think about it, Mom, he said. We've been waiting a week for your answer. And I've been handing out money for 2 years without thinking, I told him. I need time to decide how to move forward. When I hung up, I stood on the porch in the quiet, clutching the phone in one hand and touching the pearls at my throat with the other. Robert's words returned to me. So you never forget your worth. Maybe remembering my worth was exactly what I needed to do. You know what? Forget it. Forget the whole proposal. Ethan, wait. No, Mom, he cut me off, his voice sharp. We're not going to beg you for help anymore. Lauren was right. There are other options, I froze. What other options? Options that don't involve me humiliating myself, asking my own mother for money. The line went dead before I could respond. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His words looped in my head. Other options. What did he mean? What could he possibly be planning? The uncertainty gnawed at me until dawn. On Monday morning, I was eating toast at the kitchen table when I heard a knock. Expecting a neighbor, I opened the door to find a young man in a crisp suit holding a leather briefcase. Mrs. Margaret Thompson? Yes, I answered cautiously. I'm Daniel Roberts with the law firm of Hazen and Associates. Your son, Ethan Thompson, has retained our services to review your mental and financial capacity. It felt like the ground beneath me gave way. "Excuse me? Your son is concerned about your well-being," he said with a polite but rehearsed tone. "He claims you've been showing signs of paranoia, confusion, and erratic decision-making. He is considering filing for legal guardianship over your finances." The word hit me like a slap. Guardianship? "Yes, ma'am. If a judge rules you are no longer capable of managing your financial affairs, someone else, potentially your son, would be given that responsibility." I stumbled back and dropped into the armchair. My hands shook as I gripped the armrests. My own son wanted a court to decide I couldn't manage my life. "What do I need to do?" My voice cracked. "First, you'll need legal representation. Second, medical evaluations proving your mental competency. Third, documentation showing that you've been handling your finances responsibly. If the process moves forward, you'll receive an official summons with 30 days to respond." He closed his briefcase and left, leaving me alone with the echo of his words. "Your son is considering taking control of your finances." That afternoon, I called my neighbor, Alma Davis. For 15 years, we had exchanged neighborly greetings and shared the occasional cup of coffee, but never anything deeper. Still, in that moment, I needed someone who would listen. "Alma, could you come over? I really need to talk." "I'll be right there," she said without hesitation. When she arrived, I poured everything out. The loans that had become permanent, the credit card Ethan and Lauren never returned, the late-night withdrawals, and now the looming threat of guardianship. Alma sat quietly, her eyes steady, nodding as I spoke, never interrupting. When I finished, she leaned forward. "Margaret, I'll tell you exactly what I think. Your son and his wife have been manipulating you for years. Now that you're finally pushing back, they're escalating. This isn't just careless behavior, it's calculated." "You really think I'm being manipulated?" "I don't just think it," Alma said firmly. "I know it. And you're not the first woman I've seen go through this." My throat tightened. "What should I do?" "You fight," she said. "You fight with every legal tool available to you. Don't let them take your money, and don't let them strip you of your dignity." I whispered. "But what if I lose my son in the process?" Alma reached across the table and took my hands in hers. "Margaret, you already lost him. The Ethan you raised, the one who respected you, who was grateful. That boy doesn't exist anymore. What you have now is someone who values your money more than your love. And if he's willing to drag you into court to prove you're unfit, then he's already made his choice." Her words hurt, but at the same time, they unlocked something inside me. Maybe I had been clinging to a version of Ethan that only existed in memory. "Do you know a good lawyer?" I asked. "I know the best one in the city for cases like this," she said without hesitation. "Vincent Harris. He's dedicated his career to protecting older adults from family financial abuse." I repeated the name silently, committing it to memory. "Can you give me his number?" "I'll do you one better," Alma said. "I'll go with you tomorrow to his office." That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. My problems hadn't vanished, but something had changed. I had made a decision. I would fight, not just for my savings, but for myself. Ethan had chosen money over his mother, and I had finally chosen to stop letting him. Now I was going to choose my dignity over him. On Tuesday morning, Alma drove me downtown to meet with the lawyer she had recommended. The office was modest but professional, lined with shelves of thick legal books. Vincent Harris, a man in his 60s with silver hair and kind but sharp eyes, greeted us warmly. He had the calm presence of someone who had spent a lifetime guiding people through storms. "Mrs. Thompson, please," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "Tell me exactly what's been happening." So I did. I started from the beginning, the small loans that turned permanent, the credit card I never got back, the photocopy of my card, the unexplained withdrawals at 3 a.m, the bank report that revealed thousands of dollars gone, and finally, the knock at my door from a lawyer representing my own son, threatening guardianship. Vincent took notes on a yellow legal pad, nodding occasionally but never interrupting. When I finished, he set his pen down and looked at me squarely. "Mrs. Thompson, what you've described is a textbook case of family financial abuse. It's not just wrong, it's illegal." My stomach tightened. Illegal? Yes, and unfortunately it's far more common than you might think. Older adults, especially women with savings, are often targeted by family members who gradually take control of their resources. Sometimes it starts with small loans or errands, but over time it becomes full-scale exploitation. I swallowed hard. "Do I have any way to fight back?" "Absolutely," Vincent said firmly. "Here's how we'll proceed. First, we'll stop the guardianship petition before it gets any traction. Second, we'll document every unauthorized transaction. Third, we'll recover your money. And fourth, we'll put protections in place so this never happens again." For the first time in months, I felt the knot in my chest loosen. "And how much will this cost?" "My retainer is $3,000, he said. "But that's a small investment compared to the $25,000 you've already lost. If we succeed, you'll get back far more than that." I didn't hesitate. I signed the contract that day. Over the next week, Vincent's team worked with a precision that astonished me. They gathered surveillance footage from stores where my card had been used, traced online purchases back to IP addresses at Ethan and Lauren's apartment, and documented every cash withdrawal I could not have made. At our next meeting, Vincent slid a folder across the table. "Mrs. Thompson, I need you to brace yourself. What we've uncovered is worse than unauthorized charges." My hands trembled as I opened the folder. "They didn't just use your card," he continued. "They opened 3 additional credit accounts in your name, sent directly to your son's address. The balances total nearly $15,000. I gasped. "Credit cards I didn't even know existed?" "Yes. They had access to your personal information. Your social security number, your date of birth, your banking details. With that, it's easy to apply online." The weight of it crushed me. "So that means I owe that debt?" "Not necessarily," Vincent assured me. "We're filing disputes with all 3 credit bureaus and submitting fraud reports. Legally, this is identity theft. Those debts do not belong to you." That afternoon, Vincent went with me to file the reports and submit a criminal complaint against Ethan and Lauren. My heart ached at the thought of putting my own son's name on such a document, but I knew it was the only way to protect myself. "What happens now?" I asked quietly as we left the courthouse. "Your son will be notified," Vincent explained. "They'll probably try to contact you, plead with you, bargain with you, maybe even guilt you into dropping the charges. Don't agree to anything without my approval." He was right. On Friday night, my phone rang. Ethan's number flashed across the screen. My hand shook as I answered. "Mom, what have you done?" His voice was raw, filled with panic. "I've protected myself," I said evenly. "We just got served papers. Fraud? Identity theft? You're accusing us of crimes." "Because you committed them," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. There was a pause. Then his voice cracked. "We didn't commit fraud, Mom. We're your family." I closed my eyes. The pearls Robert had given me for our anniversary rested around my neck. His words echoed in my mind. "So you never forget your worth." "You're right, Ethan," I whispered. "You are my family, and that's what makes this betrayal so unforgivable." "Everything we did was with your knowledge," Ethan begged into the phone, his voice fraying. "No, it wasn't," I said, steadier than I felt. "You had my card. You had access. That is not the same as my knowledge." Mom, please, drop the charges. You don't understand what this will do to us. We'll pay you back. We'll sell things, take out loans, whatever it takes. With what money, Ethan? Where will you get $25,000 overnight? There was a ragged silence. Then he sputtered, We'll get it. We'll fix this. We never meant you opened credit in my name, I said. 15,000 in accounts I never authorized. How do you expect me to trust you after that? Another pause. Then, for the first time in years, I heard him cry, raw and small, the sound of a child, not the hardened man who stood in my living room weeks before. Mom, we're your family. You can't destroy us over money. You already destroyed me, I answered. You took my savings. Please, he whispered. Give us one more chance. Just one. No more chances, Ethan, I said. The words came from somewhere I didn't recognize, but they were true. His tone changed. The pleading drained away and something colder slid in. Then this is war, he said, clipped and dangerous. If you don't drop the charges, we'll go full force with the guardianship. We'll get witnesses who'll say you've been acting erratic. Neighbors, shopkeepers, people who'll testify you're not fit to manage your affairs. You can't manufacture witnesses, I said. You can't invent my behavior. A judge will decide, he said, and hung up. The next 48 hours were a slow, bruising assault. My answering machine filled with messages, some pleading apologies, some veiled threats, others wild promises of repayment. Footsteps and knocks punctuated the day. Ethan arrived at odd hours, either banging on the front door or calling from the sidewalk, voice booming so neighbors could hear. Lauren sent friends to the house with flimsy excuses. Can you check our mail? We dropped something off. Is Margaret home? They tried to make their presence seem casual, but it felt orchestrated. One afternoon, I heard strangers whispering at the end of the block. 3 women stood on the pavement, heads close as if sharing gossip. That's the woman who accused her son, one said loudly enough for me to hear. Poor thing. Money makes people strange when they get old. Another trailed off with a cruel laugh. The message was obvious. Make everyone think I was unstable. I called Vincent. They're doing exactly what you warned me about, I said, my voice taut. It's tactic number 1 in these cases, he replied calmly. They'll try to paint you as mentally unwell. Document everything, calls, visits, conversations. Take photos of harassment, keep a log, save messages. We'll use it. That evening, someone keyed my car in broad red letters. Crazy miser. The fresh scrape along the paint felt like an insult carved across my life. The next morning, a flyer appeared on the community board in the grocery store. Local woman sues son, sad family drama, with half-truths and more innuendo. The campaign to shame me had begun. I rang Alma. I don't want to leave my home, I told her, eyes wet. But I can't keep being bullied like this. Then don't be alone, she said without hesitation. Come here tonight. You shouldn't face this by yourself. That night, Alma slept on my sofa. Her quiet breathing beside me was a small comfort and a bitter reminder that at 70, I needed someone to stand guard against my own family. I wanted to be angry, but mostly I felt hollowed out, betrayed and bewildered by the people I raised. At 3 a.m, the phone shattered the silence. I fumbled for it, heart pounding. A stranger's voice crackled through at first, then Ethan's brother-in-law or one of Lauren's friends, always someone connected to them, begging and cajoling and trying the same old lines. Mom, are you awake? Please, we can talk. Don't make this worse. Their urgency felt designed to unnerve me, to wear me down. I sat up in the dark, the pearl necklace cool against my chest. Outside, the house creaked with the night wind. Inside, my world had narrowed to 2 things: the truth on my bank statements, and the legal path Vincent had laid out. They could throw mud. They could try to scare me with legal maneuvers and public gossip. But I had done nothing wrong. I had a folder full of evidence, a lawyer who believed me, and a neighbor who refused to let me face the storm alone. The calls and the slander continued, but so did my resolve. If they wanted war, I would defend myself. If they wanted to strip me of my dignity, I would stand and fight for it. My son had chosen a path that hurt me beyond measure, but I would not lose the rest of myself trying to save a version of him that no longer existed. I picked up the phone, my heart racing, thinking it might be some kind of emergency. "I hope you're happy," Lauren's voice sneered, muffled as if she were covering the receiver. "I hope you're happy tearing apart your own family for dirty money." "Dirty money?" I repeated, stunned. "The money your husband left you," she spat. "You think people don't know where it came from? Ask around the neighborhood. Everyone knew what kind of late-night business he was running. Everyone knew Robert wasn't as clean as you pretend." Before I could get another word out, she hung up. I sat frozen in the dark, the phone heavy in my hand. My husband Robert had been an accountant. 20 years at the same firm, quiet evenings at home, steady as a rock. There were no late-night deals, no dirty money, no secrets. But that didn't matter. Now I understood just how far Ethan and Lauren were willing to go. They weren't just trying to destroy me. They were dragging Robert's memory through the mud to break me down. "Elma," I whispered, my voice trembling. From the sofa where she'd made her bed for the night, she stirred. "What is it, Margaret?" "They're attacking Robert's name now. This is going to get worse before it gets better." She sat up, her face lit only by the faint glow from the streetlight outside. "I know, but we're standing together. They can't erase the truth." For the first time in months, I didn't feel entirely alone. I had Elma, I had Vincent, and above all, I had the truth. But in my bones, I knew truth doesn't always win easily against people who are desperate enough to lie, cheat, and slander. The court hearing was set for a Tuesday in March. The 2 weeks leading up to it were a blur of preparation. Vincent and his team worked late nights, compiling documents, tracking evidence, interviewing witnesses. They built the case piece by piece, like architects designing a fortress. Every receipt, every withdrawal, every signature mattered. Then came something unexpected. "Mrs. Johnson," Vincent told me one afternoon, "your case has opened the door to something bigger. We've uncovered 3 other victims, women in similar situations. The pattern is the same. Small financial favors turned into permanent exploitation, followed by guardianship filings once the victims resisted. You speaking up may help them find justice too." The weight of it hit me. This wasn't just about me. It was about protecting others who didn't yet have a voice. When the day finally came, I walked into the courthouse flanked by Vincent on one side and Elma on the other. My palms were damp, but my spine felt straighter than it had in years. Ethan was already seated with Lauren beside him, her arms folded tightly, her chin raised like she was daring me to look at her. Their lawyer was a young man in a perfectly tailored suit, flipping through documents with brisk confidence. When my eyes met Ethan's, he looked away almost instantly. Lauren didn't. She held my gaze, cold and hard, as if she wanted me to crumble before it even began. The judge, a man in his 50s with silver streaks in his hair and a stern face, took his place and began reviewing the files in front of him. The hearing stretched for 3 long hours. Vincent laid out everything with precision. The $25,000 in unauthorized purchases, the 3 fraudulent credit cards, the cash withdrawals made in the middle of the night, the duplicate card that had never left my purse but had been swiped in stores across town. Each detail was backed by documents, timestamps, and bank records. Their lawyer fought back aggressively. claiming I had given verbal permission, that I was confused, that I was misremembering things due to my age. He even called 2 witnesses, neighbors supposedly, who claimed they'd noticed changes in my behavior, moments of forgetfulness, paranoia. They said I wasn't the same as I used to be, but Vincent had been ready. He had a surprise that sliced through their narrative like a knife. "Your Honor," he said, "we have security footage from multiple stores where Mrs. Johnson's card was used." On the screen, grainy video showed Lauren herself swiping my card, signing my name, smiling as she carried out bags of expensive items. At those exact times, phone records proved I had been on my landline at home, miles away. The final blow came from my doctor, Dr. Paul Rodriguez. Calm and professional, he explained he had treated me for 15 years. He confirmed that I had undergone regular medical and neurological exams, all normal, all consistent with healthy aging. No signs of dementia, no cognitive decline, no impairment in my ability to manage finances. The courtroom grew heavy with silence. Even Ethan's lawyer stopped scribbling notes. Lauren's face flushed red, her jaw tightening. Ethan stared down at his hands, his shoulders hunched. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the tide turn. I wasn't just a frightened old woman defending herself. I was a wife protecting her husband's good name, a mother standing up to betrayal, and a woman reclaiming the dignity that had been stolen from her. The truth was finally louder than their lies. When the judge called me to the stand, my knees trembled, but I held my head high. My voice shook at first, but steadied as I began to speak. I told the court how it had all begun. Small loans here and there that Ethan promised to repay but never did. How Lauren and he had gradually taken control of my credit card. How copies had been made without my knowledge. And how, when I finally tried to set boundaries, they threatened to take my independence away through guardianship. "Mrs. Johnson," the judge asked me carefully, "did you at any point authorize your son or daughter-in-law to open credit accounts in your name?" "Never, Your Honor," I replied firmly. "I would never give anyone permission to open credit in my name." "Were you aware these accounts existed before you hired Mr. Harris?" I shook my head. "No. I only discovered the $15,000 in fraudulent debt once my attorney investigated the matter. When Ethan took the stand, I hardly recognized him. His story twisted with every question. First, he claimed I had verbally authorized everything. Then, when pressed, he admitted that some purchases may have been spur of the moment. At last, cornered by the evidence, he acknowledged that the credit accounts were opened without my direct knowledge. But he tried to justify it, insisting it had been for legitimate family expenses. The judge stopped him mid-sentence. His voice was firm, cutting through the courtroom like a blade. "Mr. Johnson, regardless of your reasoning, using another person's personal information to open accounts without explicit consent is identity fraud. That is not only unethical, it is a federal crime." Silence followed. Ethan shifted in his seat. Lauren stared straight ahead, her face stiff, lips pressed together. When the verdict came, it was swift and absolute. The judge denied the guardianship petition in its entirety. He ordered Ethan and Lauren to repay the $25,000 in documented unauthorized charges, plus interest and my legal costs. He further ordered the immediate cancellation of the fraudulent credit accounts and the complete removal of that debt from my credit record. But that wasn't all. A restraining order was issued against both of them, forbidding any direct contact with me for a full year. Any future communication, the judge declared, would have to go strictly through attorneys. "The documented behavior here," the judge said in closing, "is a textbook example of family financial exploitation. The evidence proves beyond doubt that Mrs. Johnson is fully competent. Her actions to protect her finances were not only justified, but necessary. This guardianship petition was not born out of genuine concern. It was a weapon of intimidation. The words landed heavy in the quiet room. For once, Ethan and Lauren had nothing left to argue. Outside the courthouse, Vincent placed a hand on my shoulder. "It may take time for the money to be repaid," he explained, "but the court order obligates them to start immediately. If they don't comply, we'll press for contempt charges. You're protected now." That night, back in the quiet of my home, I sat in my favorite armchair with a cup of tea. Outside, the garden stretched wide, alive with color. The begonias glowed red in the fading sunlight. The white geraniums I had planted months ago stood tall, thriving. Everything I had cared for still grew strong. For the first time in 2 long years, my money was safe. My home was secure. My future rested once again in my own hands. But as relief settled into me, sorrow pressed in alongside it. I had won the legal battle. I had defended my dignity. I had reclaimed my life. Yet I had lost something irreplaceable. My son. The Ethan I had raised. The boy I once held against my chest in this very chair. The young man I had supported through struggles and celebrated in triumphs. He was gone. In his place stood a stranger who had been willing to call me unstable, to drag my name through court, to steal from me without shame. Justice had triumphed, yes. But a mother's heart does not heal easily from such wounds. 6 months later, life had shifted into a quieter rhythm. My days were simpler, steadier. My finances were intact. My garden bloomed brighter than ever. On the surface, everything was whole again. But in the quiet moments, when I sat with my tea and watched the flowers sway in the breeze, I still thought of Ethan. And I wondered if somewhere inside him, the son I once knew still existed, or if I had truly lost him forever. The payments the court ordered began arriving on time, every month without fail. Slowly but surely, my bank account started to recover, and with it, my peace of mind. For the first time in years, I could sleep without waking up in a panic about unpaid bills or surprise debts. Vincent, ever diligent, oversaw that Ethan and Lauren followed the judge's ruling down to the last detail. In those months of correspondence and meetings, our conversations shifted away from court documents and legal updates. I learned about his life, how he had been a widower for 5 years, how his 3 children were grown and lived in other states, and how he filled his quiet evenings with books and tending to his backyard garden. One afternoon, as we sat on my patio reviewing payment confirmations, he looked at the bougainvillea climbing along the fence. "How do you get it to grow so beautifully?" he asked with genuine curiosity. "Patience and constant care," I told him. "It's the same with anything worth keeping." His visits grew more frequent after that, less about law and more about companionship. Sometimes he would bring a stack of papers as an excuse, but after we finished the signatures, we'd end up talking for hours about novels we loved, the quirks of politics, and the lessons of long marriages. I noticed something I hadn't felt in years. He saw me as Margaret, a woman with stories, humor, and worth, not just as a client with financial wounds. One Sunday afternoon in October, as we shared tea and a plate of my oatmeal cookies, Vincent set aside his cup and gently took my hand. "Margaret, these past months with you have been the happiest I've known since my wife passed. You've given me back a piece of life I thought was gone. Hope, trust, even joy. Does it sound foolish that a 62-year-old lawyer finds himself falling in love with his 70-year-old client?" I felt my cheeks flush, my heart fluttering like a schoolgirl's. If it's foolish, then let's both be fools, because I haven't felt this alive in a long time. 6 months later, we married in a small private ceremony. Just the two of us. My friend Elma as my witness, his brother as his, and a judge to pronounce us husband and wife. It was simple, quiet, and perfect. When Vincent moved into my home, he brought not only his law books and favorite plants, but a warmth that filled every corner of the house. Together, we turned Robert's old study into a shared library. Together, we expanded the garden with tulips and hydrangeas. Together, we found joy in routines. Me cooking dinner while he reviewed pro bono cases, both of us laughing as we washed dishes side by side. Vincent had found a new calling after my case, helping older adults who had been financially exploited by family members. "Every win is more than money," he told me one evening, his eyes alight. "It's proof that dignity can be defended." Watching him work gave me pride, and I was grateful that my suffering had helped shape his mission. About half a year after our wedding, I received a call one quiet afternoon. The number was familiar, but my heart tightened when I saw it. Against the court's restrictions, Ethan had called. His voice was tired, broken. "Mom, I know I shouldn't be calling, but I needed to say this. Lauren and I are divorcing. She left me for someone else. She took whatever little money we had left after the case. I've got nothing. No money, no wife, and no mother because of my own mistakes." A sharp ache ran through me. He was still my son, no matter how deep the betrayal had been. But I was not the same woman who had once caved to guilt and manipulation. "Ethan," I said evenly, "I'm sorry you're going through this. But choices have consequences. You hurt me deeply when you used me and then tried to strip me of my independence." His voice cracked. "Can you ever forgive me?" "I already have in my heart. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't erase the damage. Maybe one day, if you show through your actions that you've truly changed, not just that you need help again, we might find some kind of relationship. But it can't go back to what it was." There was silence, then a faint, choked thank you before the line went dead. That was the last time I heard his voice. Friends later told me Ethan had left town, that he had found a modest job in another city, and that he was trying to rebuild. I carried both grief and hope in my heart. Grief for the son I had lost to poor choices, and hope that perhaps, in starting over, he might one day find the man I had once been so proud to raise. Through it all, I remained steady. My home was safe, my finances secure, my heart open but guarded. And by my side was Vincent, whose presence reminded me every day that trust and love can bloom again, even after years of storm. A part of me, the mother I will always be, still holds on to a quiet hope that one day Ethan will truly find himself again, that he will become the man I once believed I was raising. But I no longer let that hope anchor me in place. I no longer put my life on pause, waiting for someone else to change. My days now are full in ways I never expected at this stage of life. Vincent and I have built something steady, something tender, something honest. We take small trips together, nothing extravagant, but always meaningful. Drives along the coast, visits to old towns with bookshops and cafes. We spend evenings reading aloud, each of us pausing to share our thoughts over the words on the page. We care for our garden, adding color with each season, watching life flourish from the soil. His children visit when they can, filling the house with laughter, stories, and warmth. What we share is simple yet extraordinary, a bond grounded in respect, affection, and the quiet joy of being truly valued. At 72, I discovered something I never imagined I would learn so late in life. That it is never too late to stand up for your dignity. It is never too late to draw boundaries. It is never too late to begin again. Yes, I lost a great deal of money, and yes, in many ways I lost my only son. But in return, I gained something far more precious: my freedom, my self-respect, and the kind of love that comes without conditions or hidden motives. Now, every morning I wake in my own home, knowing my finances are safe, my choices are mine, and beside me is a man who cherishes me for who I am, not for what I own. That sense of security, of being loved without expectation, is sweeter than anything I could have dreamed. Life has a way of teaching hard lessons. For me, the greatest one has been this. Sometimes, to truly gain everything, you must be willing to lose what you once thought you couldn't live without. Did this story touch your heart? Where are you listening from? Share your thoughts. I'd love to meet you in the comments. If you'd like to support my stories, you can send a super thanks to help me keep sharing more real-life experiences like this one. Thank you so much for your kindness. On the screen, you'll find 2 more life stories I recommend, and there are many more waiting for you on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next life story.